The story begins with the thoughts of the protagonist Shen Kang that everyone around him is weak, unable to get a system, and if you do not make a bank deposit, then you are no different from dirt. The Yan School is one of the main schools among thousands in the country. 50 years ago, after the recovery of the world economy, it gradually became the main one in the field of wushu. This school has more than 50 teachers with an E8 certificate, 5 gold medalists with an E3 certificate. A large number of students are transferred to the higher school of martial arts every year. All the students looked in surprise at the newcomer who came out of a large tinted black car, accompanied by personal guards. A young guy with red hair, dressed in an iron light suit and with a proud expression on his face, is the young owner of the Shenkai Corporation. The sight of him alone inspired wealth and confidence. There were rumors that he entered the 11th grade without passing the entrance exam in martial arts. This important exam is taken in order to enter the 7th grade. But the main character didn't have to study hard, and all because of a rich and influential family. An unknown young man who crashed sharply confused the guards of the young master of the Shen family. He turned out to be the illegitimate child of the father of the main character named Shen Haotian. As it turned out, the Shen family had a decent number of illegitimate children. The defenders of Shenkai reacted sharply to the arrogant bastard. They were already ready to catch the thief, but their master told them to stop. The young gentleman did not want to punish the boy. On the contrary, he offered help in paying off debts. Shen Haotian rudely refused his rich brother, reproaching him for his high status and position. Instead of catching the petty hooligan, Shen Kai transferred 200,000 yuan from his account to him. After all, though not a native, but a brother, it would be too heartless not to help the outcast family. The personal guard of the gentleman was only surprised at such a kind gesture. After just 2 years, the situation has changed a lot. Previously rich and independent, Shen Kai begged to take him to Yan's school, for which he then never passed the martial arts exam. The teacher did not even listen to the other achievements of the former young gentleman, but advised him to go to an ordinary school. Unexpectedly, the hero met his half-brother Shen Haotian. Now he, dressed up in a fashionable suit, was the head of the Shen company. But he passed the exam, which took him 7 years of preparation. The new heir recalled Shen Kai's insult inflicted on him 2 years ago. The new head had absolutely no desire to communicate with his brother, so he just threw a check for 100,000 yuan at his feet, reminding Shen Kai once again that they were from different worlds now. The guards of Shen Haotian admired the fact that he entered the University of Martial Arts, and the main character, who can't even graduate from an ordinary school, is no match for him. Already starting to leave, Shen's heir was stopped by Shen Kai, who reminded him that in the past, he had given him 200,000 yuan and now the gentleman threw only 100,000. It wasn't fair. Enraged by such insolence, Shen Haotian gave his annoying brother the remaining money and sent the young man away. Riding in a taxi, Shen Kai reflected on how painful and sad he was from such a situation. No matter how carefree he looked, there was longing on his soul. He looked sullenly at the floor of the car, remembering his past happy years of life, which were full of countless purchases and simple joys. The taxi driver who was driving the guy asked him about the light of his depressed mood. Shen Kai studied hand-to-hand combat techniques for 7 years and did not even achieve the required minimum of physical training compared to other masters. That was what weighed him down. The driver, in turn, shared that he is not gifted with special data, so he works as an ordinary taxi driver. The news began to transmit information that a robbery and murder had been committed in Tin Shan Park, and according to well-known sources, the killer was a practitioner of the 2nd level of physical martial art. There is a wound on his body, and he is mentally unwell. Those sitting in the car were extremely surprised by the new news. After all, the killer is a 2nd-level practitioner. 50 years ago, when the economy was restored, martial artists influenced the world and gradually changed it. With the support and guidance of the state, masters have become the most popular profession in society. The government has divided qualifications into 5 levels from A to E. Those who were able to receive it held a high position and respect compared to ordinary people. However, their practice requires innate talents, and despite the high demands from the government, the number of people who will be able to engage in physical training is very small. Physical fitness is the lowest level in the field of body hardening, which is divided into 9 levels, of which each can significantly increase physical strength and make steel bones and muscles. If someone wants to get out of their usual body and become stronger, then they should practice martial arts. After the life force is restored, it will be distributed into 4 stages: initial, intermediate, advanced, and perfect. Each tempering means a breakthrough to 1 level out of 9. Only the qualified will be able to enter the higher realm. Thus, martial arts and practices complement each other. For example, hand-to-hand combat is taught in basic martial arts schools. After completing the training, it is difficult for people to move to the first level of physical fitness. However, high-level skills are extremely difficult to see in society, and it is also forbidden to teach independently only after entering the university. The driver brought the main character to a posh house. He was surprised and said that even though the guy has no talent in practice, he is still better than ordinary people. Shen Qian told that this house was left to him by his deceased mother, and he is the only thing he has left. The Shen family rejected the guy because without a talent in martial arts, he has no future. The father gives his son 1,000 yuan every year to pay for his stay. The main character was burdened that now Hao Chan became the heir of his family. After all, he used to be ordinary losers, but 2 years ago he suddenly became stronger. Once in the house, Shen Qian noticed footprints on the floor and thought that a thief had entered. The hero was at a loss, completely without money and status. There was nothing to steal from him. But on the sofa in the living room, the guy found a young girl. The young man, despite the beautiful appearance of the young lady, decided to continue looking for an uninvited guest. An unknown silhouette appeared in the dark corridor. It was a thief who turned out to be a dangerous second-level criminal from the news. When the guy realized this, he was overtaken by all the horror of understanding the danger of the situation in which he found himself. Such a dangerous person could do anything to him, and no one will save him. The kidnapper began to threaten Shen Qian with violence, and then, without difficulty, knocked him to the floor and pulled out the last 200,000 yuan from his pockets. He tied up his victim and temporarily left the house. Bound, beaten, experiencing overwhelming pain, the hero began to feel despair. After all, when the thief returns, then definitely deal with him. Such thoughts did not give the young man peace. He had a premonition of imminent death. Unexpectedly, Shen Qian heard that the launch of the donation system had begun. At first, the main character did not understand where he heard an unknown voice. The fantastic system went on to say that its goal is to cultivate metal multiple times, and submission to the master on the basis of the principle of equality, which can choose an object for the development of Kai. The system is located inside Shen Qian's mind and does not have an essence on par with the master's spirit. The system was started because it was gradually accumulating the amount of energy to work, and finally it is ready. But due to the increased absorption of energy, it is difficult for the hero to practice the art of war. However, now that the system has started working, it does not require power. The advantages of the system are divided into 2 points. The first is an investment, the transfer of values in the likeness of gold, silver, cash and their transformation into a cryptocurrency necessary for Kai. The second is cultivation through cultivation. After all, the skill that the master possesses has been improved. The limitations of this ability are that valuables such as coins, banknotes, bank cards, etc. belonging to the master can only be absorbed by touching them. Also, to raise the level in a certain art, the master must possess at least the initial level. The main character has the current level of hand-to-hand combat. Initial. The system requires 10,000 yuan to advance to the intermediate level, 100,000 to advanced and 1 million to achieve perfection. Shen Qian said that if the system had started earlier, 2 years ago, he would have been a master of the maximum level. After all, at that time the guy was still with money and could give as much as he wanted. But the young man did not despair. Looking at the knife lying next to him, a certain plan matured in his head. Going back in time, Shen Qian remembers his father's words that, without progress in martial arts, he is a complete incompetence and disappointment. Everyone thought that the young master was an ordinary child who was eating and waiting for death. Therefore, he could only pretend that he didn't care, thereby deceiving himself. Then, he started resisting with himself. It was a desire to overcome the limits of their abilities, to go beyond what was allowed, show this world what it's worth. But as soon as the father of the Shen family found out that his illegitimate son Hao Tian suddenly became a martial arts genius and reached the heavenly Kai level, he immediately abandoned his rightful heir. After cutting the binding ropes with a knife, Shen Qian heard that the thief had unexpectedly returned. He realized that he would not have time to escape. Therefore, the guy decided to use a card with living expenses, asking the system to transfer all funds into virtual currency and raise it immediately to an advanced level. He screamed as loudly as he could. However, the balance was not enough to advance to the advanced level. The main character was very upset and angry that he didn't have enough 700 yuan because he can't even reach the average level. And his pursuer already has a second level of physical fitness, which is very problematic. Shen Qian is at a complete loss and does not know what to do next. He even took out all the remaining change from his pockets and asked the system to take it at least. Thus, she accepted 462 yuan, but was still 200 short. The guy didn't have a penny left. Unexpectedly, the system found a goal for the contribution. It was the money that the unconscious girl had on the couch. She looked exhausted and exhausted. To convert someone else's funds, you need to contact the owner of the money directly for a certain period of time. It is forbidden to interrupt the process, and the time depends on the amount of conversion. But the young man decided not to hesitate and checked the young lady's clothes for the presence of at least some funds. So, he found a pocket in which 314 yuan was found. Since they do not belong to the owner, the system will need a minute to convert. The guy frantically begged her to hurry up, because the girl could wake up at any moment. The returning thief was surprised to see a young man running away from the place. After all, he could not so easily untie the rope and free himself. This fact caused the man to panic. After a while, the kidnapper found Shen Kaian behind the sofa, and he had to show himself because the young man was counting on the time for which the stranger's money was to be converted. Already starting the fight with the thief, the system accepted the money and raised the level of the guy's hand-to-hand combat to average. It was a rapid leap in strength. The man was decently amazed at the suddenly awakened strength of the guy, because he was able to give a worthy rebuff to the brazen intruder. He even thought that the young man had deliberately shown weakness in order to lower his vigilance and wait for an opportunity to escape. But fortunately, Shen Kang just managed to raise his level in time, otherwise he would have been in trouble. At the same time, it was still very difficult and almost impossible to defeat the thief. After all, his level was still an order of magnitude higher. Therefore, the young man offered the uninvited guest to leave the house quietly and promised not to call the police. But the kidnapper launched a furious attack, shouting that he was not going to bargain. Thus, he inflicted a serious wound to the guy's neck. The former young gentleman began to bleed heavily. The thief was already anticipating his victory, simultaneously calling his opponent a pathetic scum with an average level of hand-to-hand combat. The man behaved too brazenly and presumptuously. Shen Kaian, unexpectedly, struck with his shoulder right in the chest of the enemy, causing his indignation and a fit of weakness. The young man replied to the thief that he had been engaged in military hand-to-hand combat for many years, so he could not be useless. The enraged kidnapper decided to show the youngster a real martial art. He gathered all his strength and will in his hands. His eyes became filled with hatred and a desire to kill. Once behind the guy, the man struck a bloody hawk strike right in the back, thereby stunning the opponent. The attack was truly fierce and powerful, knocking Shen Kang into the wall. But the blow also affected the thief himself, opening his old wound. Deciding that he had already dealt with the guy, the kidnapper relaxed and was ready to leave. But Shen Kaian's system found funds belonging to him in the amount of 200,000 yuan, and the hero will replenish his account, advancing his strength to a new rank. The thief was extremely surprised and excited, because his money began to disappear, and the guy's strength grew. The young man was all lit up with light. He decided to immediately upgrade the level of hand-to-hand combat, which required 100,000 yuan. At the moment of the fight, the girl woke up. She looked confused and surprised by what was happening, but decided to warn the guy about caution. The young man's hand glowed with red rays from the overwhelming force. He dealt the thief a crushing blow to the heart, calling the technique a mountain-crushing blow. The opponent lost miserably because of the money stolen from the guy. It lay pathetically under his feet. Thanks to the deposit system, Shen Kaian defeated his first martial arts practitioner. And also, he met that girl named Wu Jin, who promised to help him in the future. After all, he had saved her. The young beauty was sincerely grateful to her savior, bowing to him. The girl had bright blue eyes and long blonde hair. She is dressed in simple casual clothes. The lady did not inspire confidence, but there was kindness and strength of spirit in her. The guy decided to ask a new friend if she has money. But realizing that the girl had no money, I was a little disappointed. Suddenly, a sharp pain knocked the young man off his feet. Piercing him through, he fell to the floor. Shen Kaian felt a familiar, uncontrollable feeling of hunger. Unable to move, he remembered Wu Jin's communication to help him. The girl was worried about the guy and did not understand what was happening to him. But I agreed to help. Thus, Shen was already eating more than a dozen plates of rice, kindly prepared by Wu Jin. The guy explained that he himself did not understand how this was happening. It's just that at some indefinite moment he begins to feel terribly hungry and cannot control his appetite. There was already a mountain of empty plates in front of him, and the girl kept bringing new portions. The young man ate everything without a trace with great desire. Wu Jin was a little puzzled, because she thought that Shen Kaian would ask for something other than food. It was the first time she had seen such a hungry guy, who calmed down only after eating a plate of rice, which is unknown by the count. He didn't eat very carefully. Apart from himself, everything was in the food. The young man thanked him for the treat and said that he did not always eat like that. He just can't control it. Now, it was necessary to decide what to do with the body of the kidnapper. Shen Kaian asked Wu Jin to help get rid of him, but the girl was scared and preferred to wash the dishes in the kitchen. She wasn't ready for such things yet. Too modest and decent. According to the routine when killing monsters, the losing man had to give something to the guy. It was unlikely that he had money, but there might be a set of scrolls with martial arts secrets. As a result, the hero found the Hawk's Bloody Strike technique, which he had used on the guy earlier, on the corpse. This technique is a strong and powerful attack that can make a huge contribution to Shen Kaian's achievement. Blood Hawk Strike can help you advance to the second level of martial art, and this is definitely better than a weak hand-to-hand combat skill. The main character felt that he definitely should master a new skill and actively use it. The young man also wanted to check how much this technique costs, but the system was unable to evaluate it since the owner is not familiar with it. Shen Kaian was clearly upset by this fact because he hoped to learn the ability faster, thereby becoming stronger. Due to the inability to learn the technique, the young man was forced to leave it on the shelf until he had money. He was sad to do it, but there was no choice. Shen Kaian decided to find out from the system the reason for his severe recent hunger. After all, it was really a strange incident. She replied that by using the system for practice, it is possible to reduce time, but it is impossible not to take into account energy consumption since the system extracts power from the host to make a breakthrough in the technique of martial art. This answer surprised the hero. He thought that practicing martial skills requires a lot of activity. Under normal circumstances, it is necessary to accumulate it over days and months in order to develop step by step. The young man made a sharp breakthrough in hand-to-hand combat from the initial to the advanced level, and this was reflected by the fact that energy was drained even from his blood. The development of such a technique to a perfect level can lead the owner to death. Therefore, Shen Qian realized that in the future he should be more careful and not need to rise so quickly, because it could kill him. The hero wanted to find out from the system what would happen if he made a breakthrough immediately to the perfect level, to which she replied that she could not predict the consequences, because this had not happened before. However, if there is not enough energy, the host will die of exhaustion. And also, the system reminded the young man that now he does not have enough balance for such an elevation. The guy was terrified of such assumptions and consequences. He decided that in the future he should stock up on high-calorie food and high-quality pills. All this was necessary in order not to simply die. The young man wanted to stay alive, and for this he needed money, which he did not have. When Shen Qian was thinking about where to hide the corpse of his enemy, people suddenly burst into his house, armed with machine guns. They blew up the entrance and told no one to move. The fighters looked dangerous and hostile. They were dressed in camouflage suits protected by a vest. Wu Jin, just at this moment, finished washing the dishes and went to the guy from the kitchen. A picture of Shen Qian surrounded by special forces rose in front of her. The armed men considered the girl an accomplice and also seized her. At the police station, the young man told how it really was. After listening, the law enforcement officer said that the government highly appreciated the actions of the guy and the girl who helped detain the martial artist. Also, they felt that it would be an example for the young people of the new era, and they would understand that there is no need to be afraid and dare to fight. After making sure that Shen Qian and Wu Jin came to their senses, the policeman reported that the young people behaved quite bravely when detaining the criminal. Therefore, government agencies are obliged to give them a proper reward. The police decided to give the heroes a medal for bravery and give them a bonus of 10,000 yuan. Shen Qian said he had objections about the reward, because the situation at the crime scene was extremely dangerous. The criminal threatened to kill the hostage, and he was not afraid and had a duel with him at the highest level. The fight was not for life, but for death. The slightest mistake could lead to an irreparable tragedy, because the killer was furious and promised that he would destroy everything around. That's why the guy wanted to get more reward for his act, to which the employee said that it should be discussed with the authorities first. Drawing attention to the modest and kind Wu Jin, the policeman decided to offer her a personal apology and offered to provide any help. The girl mentally supported her savior and demanded to increase her reward amount because she doesn't need anything else. She still felt indebted to the guy, so at least in money she could express her gratitude. As a result, the police officer gave the heroes another 50,000 yuan bonus. Shen Qian considered him a stingy person because he hoped to beg for more money. Wu Jin kept following the hero, which surprised him, because the girl received her reward of 10,000 yuan. She decided to remind her friend that he took 300 yuan out of her pocket then and has not yet returned the money. The guy was amazed at this statement, because he saved her life and now she is acting quite mercantile. But the girl replied that she earns money with great difficulty. That's why she asks so much. Shen Kang received a call from his former friend and assistant Zio Wang, who reported that he had heard about his troubles. He advised him to bow down to Master Hao Chan. The new young master is having a party tomorrow, so Zio Wang said that Shen Kang should go there and say a few good words to his stepbrother. After all, this is a great opportunity to be in a favorable position with the Shen family again. An old friend of the guy remembered and did not forget his kindness. So, Zio Wang really hopes that he won't be stubborn anymore. But Shen Qian told him that there was no need to give unsolicited advice, especially after he joined and began serving Hao Chan. Also, the former master warned that it is no longer necessary to help him with such instructions in the future. After that, he hurriedly hung up the phone without letting him finish. Wu Jin asked who it was who called, and the young man immediately replied to her that it was his former acquaintance. The guy decided to offer the girl a job, because she was talking about the need for money. The lady was very embarrassed and gave out that she was not going to do anything illegal. Shen Qian said that all he needed to get information for him. The young people agreed to meet at the bus stop in the middle of the working day. Due to the fact that the young man was late, Wu Jin already had time to think that the guy decided to deceive her. The poor girl didn't know what to do next if he didn't come. But Shen Qian, after a little delay, still arrived at the meeting. He apologized and said that the young lady came too early. The guy offered the girl a part-time job, and the place of work was a luxurious mansion of his family. Wu Jin was greatly amazed by this fact, because the house looked huge and majestic, giving away the status and wealth of its owner. The young man told the girl in secret that he was actually the son of the owner of this mansion and was going to become the heir again. The girl replied that there are no such pathetic rich sons as the hero. Nevertheless, it was time to get to work. Meanwhile, a large-scale event was taking place at the Sheng family mansion. The gathered guests actively discussed the new main son of the family. There were rumors that Hao Tian had already reached the 3rd level of practice, which is why he gathered them all here to show off. The visitors who arrived considered him an arrogant young man, unworthy of such honors. A beautiful woman got out of a magnificent red car. She was dressed in a chic dark blue dress. Her hair was brown, and her eyes expressed anger and irritation. The people around her didn't even dare to approach the lady. The guard who met her addressed her as Miss Liang and informed her that the young gentleman had been expecting a lady for a long time. The caretaker bowed politely, but she didn't even pay attention to him. This behavior caused indignation on the part of the guard. He thought that she was just lucky to meet Master Hao. Almost sneaking into the house, Shen Qian and Wu Jin noticed a standing guard. The guy told the girl that she should just listen to his instructions. She was very surprised that the son of the owner of the mansion could not safely enter his house. In order for the lady not to ask any more strange questions, the young man promised to pay her 500 yuan more. She immediately agreed to it. Money comes first. The watchman was no longer waiting for new guests, when suddenly an unknown girl ran up to him, shouting that her puppy Xiao Bai had run into this house. Wu Jin made a cute face and began tearfully begging the guard to let her inside, because the dog is her family. Without Xiao Bao, she would not be able to live on. He was very important to her. But the strict guard did not let the young lady pass in any case. He resolutely refused the girl, despite all her requests. The man even promised to use force if Wu Jin did not abandon his attempt to enter the mansion. At this time, Shen Qian slipped unnoticed through the gate of the house. He put on a dark jacket and a hood so that no one would recognize or suspect him for sure. The guests who arrived talked about the merits of the current heir of the family, namely, that Hao Tian is just a genius in martial arts. And also, they were wondering why Shen Qian's former main son ran away. Such rumors clearly upset the young man. He wasn't in the mood to listen to all this dirty slander. Hao Tian himself took the stage. He welcomed everyone who appreciates this meeting. Everyone present at this event. From now on, he will consider his friends in the Sheng family. The guests began to talk about the fact that the heir just wants to lure everyone to his side. Hao Tian continued his speech. He said that he invited everyone today because he is already a student of the University of Martial Arts and all those present are children of a new generation. The heir also believes that in the future they will have opportunities for cooperation. Hao Tian introduced Ms. Liang Ming, informing about the cooperation of Sheng Corporation with Liang Corporation. The visitors of the event were very surprised by the new news, and everyone began to understand the reason for Miss Liang's presence. The stormy attention did not confuse the lady. She held herself firmly and confidently. The assistant of the Sheng family, who came up to her, told her to say something to Hao Tian's statement. Sighing heavily, she was about to insert her speech when suddenly an unknown voice interrupted her. It was Shen Qian who shouted to Shen Tan that he had difficulty finding his brother, and Mrs. Liang was amazed at such an impudent act of the guy. Equally surprised, Hao Tian convulsively distorted the source of the voice in the crowd. He did not understand who dared to interrupt his long-awaited meeting and disrupt the speech of a future business partner. The crowd was also amazed. Everyone turned to the impudent young man. Then it became clear who it was. Shen Qian took off his hood and with a smile told Hao Tian that he had to do him a small favor. The people immediately recognized the former heir, but decided not to interfere and just continue to watch the show. The young man began to complain to his brother about a difficult fate. He told about how difficult his life had been lately. At this, the new heir told the guards to catch the guy. They began to surround him from all sides. Shen Qian jumped on the common table, saying that his brother had no conscience at all because he used to think that he had at least a drop of virtue left. The guests mockingly watched what was happening, namely, behind Shen Qian running across the table, shouting that Hao Tian is one of those who hides a knife behind a smile and how ungrateful he is. The guy sincerely wished that in the future people would also treat him meanly and lowly. Hao Tian decided to stop this performance and stop humiliating him. He asked the young man what he wanted and why he came at all. Following the order of the heir, the guards had to retreat and let Shen Qian go. The guy reminded Hao Tian of the old years of the past, when he took care of his younger brother and changed his diapers. For this, Shen Qian was now asking for help. Having received permission to speak, the young man said that he was experiencing difficulties, namely such that he could not afford to eat properly, not to mention the existing debts. And also, a collector called him, who promised to break the guy's leg if he didn't pay. Shen Qian gave out that it was cruel and unfair, so his brother should help him with financial difficulties, promising to help his brother not get into trouble in the future. The guy asked for 2 million yuan, justifying himself by saying that he owed a lot. Hao Tian thought that if it wasn't for this event, he would have beaten Shen Qian to death. But under the pressure of society, he could not do so and could not fail to respond to the request of the young man. After all, it was necessary to preserve the dignity of the Sheng family, and not to go into conflict with the former heir. With a polite expression on his face, Hao Tian told people that he was sorry for making a fool of himself, and also that some negligence in the upbringing of family members is his fault. After all, he is the one who deals with family property. The new heir jumped onto the table, just like Shen Kaian. With a proud look, he wrote out a check for 500,000 yuan in front of everyone and threw it at his brother's feet, saying that this money would definitely be enough to live in peace for several years. Shen Kaian was disappointed and called Hao Chan stingy and heartless. The young man was clearly strained and hurt by this attitude of the heir to him, because he humiliatingly threw a statement with money directly to him. The hero only grinned in response to such audacity. He proudly replied to the heir that he did not seem to have received proper upbringing in childhood, demonstrating such behavior. Shen Kaian decided to remind his brother that valuables like this check should not be spoiled. After all, even if you are rich today, it is unknown what will happen tomorrow and what can be expected. The young man took the check with the money and put it in his pocket. And Hao Chan added that he hopes for the manifestation of reason from his older brother. After all, the Sheng family will not support someone like him forever, which means that he should find a job as soon as possible and stop idling. Unexpectedly, the new heir took Shen Kaian by the shoulder and with a fierce look put the poor fellow on the table, thereby completely suppressing his power. This was the fierce power of the third level of practice that Hao Tian had mastered. The guy couldn't move, but the old one wouldn't even be able to stand on his feet. He said that his brother didn't need to break the table for 500,000 yuan if he just wanted to kill him. To this, the new head dismissed Shen Kaian, saying that he had only done a massage after seeing the young man's weak and helpless body. All the people around grinned, appreciating the cruel joke. And the humiliated hero considered the massage too powerful. Hao Chan politely started asking the guy to leave the house, because he had already taken the money. With his limbs shaking from the pain, Shen Kaian, warmly thanking his brother, began to hurry away. The assistance of the heir offered the owner to deal with the persistent relative, because he is always pestering for money and asking for help. It certainly wasn't a bad prospect, but Hao Chan told him to leave the guy alone and clean up the broken table, because the party wasn't over yet. And the thoughts of the new head was that his blow directly affects the heart, which means that the young man will no longer be able to train. Therefore, he would advise the annoying brother not to spend the given funds on something useless. Leaving, the main character began to think that what kind of heir is cruel. After all, he almost suffered from his crushing attack. He hoped that no one would guess his progress in martial arts, and the young man considered his public performance worthy. There was a thought in my head that everything went according to plan. Everything is as it should be. He got his money. With the funds received, the hero saw himself as a future winner. Now he will definitely finish with Hao Chan, who so unworthily insulted him and took his place in the family. At least, the young man had the slightest hope and confidence in his own success. At the entrance, Wu Jin was waiting for him, all chilled from the cold, who immediately asked if the guy had got the necessary information. She even thought that Shen Kaian had decided to run away with her reward. But the main character is not such a person. He honestly fulfilled his promise and gave the lady a reward of 1,000 yuan. For him it was a small amount of money, and the girl was very happy with the amount received. Now she was convinced that the young man was the son of a rich man and called him generous. He just sighed heavily, saying that real rich people are not like him. Wu Jin abruptly remembered that the guy still owed her the stolen 314 yuan. And also, he promised to add another 500 for the task, which means he had to give her 1,500 yuan. Shen Kaian was surprised, because he thought that giving the girl 1,000 yuan would be quite enough. He said that from now on he would call her a miser. The action takes place in Yanbei High School. The bell rang, heralding the beginning of the lesson, which means it's time for the students to hurry up to class. After all, this educational institution is severely punished for tardiness or absenteeism. Naturally, no one wanted to grab a fine. Before the students rushing to their classes, an amazing sight arose. There were qualifying exams for the elite class. Two guys with a sinister aura were fighting among themselves. One of them had brown hair and looked quite calm and judiciously assessed the situation. The other one had blonde hair. Anger was burning from his eyes. He looked incredibly hostile and aggressive. The blonde guy was ready to deliver a powerful punch, when suddenly his opponent abruptly disappeared from view. The stunned young man missed and now heard the voice of his opponent right above him. The dark-haired man told him that his position was weak, and all the strength needed to be released in a blow, adding his victory with a rather hard kick in the stomach. A guy named Fen Dawei flew into the wall and suffered a crushing defeat, which the judge concluded. Also, he added that Gao Xiaobo would be next. A young man from the jury decided to ask the director if it was too strict to ask the teacher to personally select student. After all, even if the teacher is restrained at the first level, students cannot cope with even 3 of his techniques. For them it is too much. The director replied that there had never been such a thing in educational practice before, but once one student decided to give a bribe, so they had to resort to changes in the rules. The head of the educational institution began a story about the events that took place 2 years ago, when students competed with each other in exam preparation classes to determine their outstanding talents for recruitment to the school. Every year, many students took part, even those who were not accepted to the higher school of martial arts. And as a result, a man named Shen Kaian relied on his family's money and smoked all his opponents. The director was furious while telling this story. He went on to say that in the end, this student didn't even get into the worst martial arts school, which became a universal disgrace of Yanbei High School. That's why they changed the rules. Now the teacher personally evaluates each of the students. The jury assistant was only surprised by the cunning of the guy from the story. After all, only a spoiled son of a rich father could pull this off. Meanwhile, Shen Kaian sneaked to the front entrance of Yanbei High School. There was a sleeping guard sitting there, whose martial arts level was equal to the second. Therefore, the young man thought that he should be more careful, because if he made even a little noise, the watchman would instantly notice him. Climbing over the fence. When falling down, the guy accidentally stepped on a nearby branch, thereby giving out a loud crack. Shen Kaian was scared and didn't know where to go. The guard reacted instantly. He immediately came out of his booth and started shouting, thinking that this was a student who decided to skip classes. His cry was full of determination and anger, because the man was torn from a sweet dream. But all he saw in front of him was a girl, Liang Ming's disciple. She apologized for interrupting the guard's lunch. The man immediately changed his face at the sight of the young lady. First of all, he said that it was not her fault and she should not worry. The watchman decided to find out if the girl had passed the entrance exam to the elite class. After waiting for a positive response, he called Liang Ming a very talented young person. The guard suggested that the girl would definitely surpass him in the future with such successes. He said goodbye to her, informing her that he would continue his work. Shen Kaian let out a sigh of relief. He followed Liang Ming to thank the lady for saving him. If it wasn't for her, he would definitely be in trouble. The girl asked the guy about the purpose of his stay at school. He replied that he wanted to try his luck in the qualifying exams. Liang Ming told the young man that the rules had changed this year, and he would no longer be able to bribe someone. Shen Kaian showed her his sincere desire and willingness to show all his strength. Now, he can only count on himself and possible luck. The girl only added that she would be waiting for him in class, and the guy thought that the lady helped him again, and he didn't even repay her for the last time. It upset him. The brown-haired teacher who defeated all his students was interested in whether anyone else wanted to take the test. He looked extremely serious and strict. His energy screamed about its strength and power. The students talked about how ruthless the teacher was, because those who lost were beaten to death. Of course, none of the remaining students wanted to repeat their fate. The formidable teacher said that this year he got the most incompetent course of all that he had ever taught. Finally, he added that if there are no more people willing to take the entrance exams, then everyone can disperse. At the last moment, Shen Kaian appeared, causing sincere misunderstanding on the part of the other students of the school. The teacher himself at first did not even understand who gave the voice. The hero boldly went to class, repeating his desire to take part in the exams. At Yanbei High School, Shen Kaian's name was often mentioned. He was set as an example as a bad student, who is definitely not worth looking up to. The rest of the students, who have listened to it many times, have already memorized his name by heart. Almost every freshman knew him. Some teachers even talked about the fact that if it wasn't for the rules, they would definitely have dealt with him. And now, the joyful Shen Kaian came to school again showed a desire to pass the exam. The examination board was greatly shocked, remembering perfectly well how it ended last time. They didn't want to let something like this happen again. After all, because of this student, they even had to change the rules of the test. Especially the director was dissatisfied with the possible prospect of the young man's return to school. Shen Kaian, noticing him, said that he thought he had been resting in retirement for a long time. Such a statement even more exasperated the head. He almost broke down in front of all the students. Only an assistant could keep him in place. The students were discussing the arrival of the well-known Shen Kaian. His school exploits have been on the radar for as long as 2 years. They were even interested in looking at the one about whom teachers so often talk. The teacher leading the exam immediately recognized Shen Kaian, and the guy himself thought that after finishing school, he became much more famous. The director asked the guy about what he was doing here if he had learned for a long time, and the young man replied that he wanted to take part in selected competitions for admission to the elite class. The enraged head of the school told him not to even think about it. But Shen Kaian continued to insist, reinforcing his words with the extracurricular rules of the school, according to which students after graduation have the right to re-enroll by taking part in the certification. The director insisted on his own, because Yanbei High School is a place where you can practice martial arts and not engage in idleness, and the guy was clearly not suitable for such classes. Therefore, the leader insisted that Shen Kaian find another field to gain knowledge. The guy has already started thinking about complaining to the management, when suddenly the voice of that strictly teacher Lin was heard. He put everyone present into a stupor, informing them that the young man could participate in the exam. The teacher explained his behavior by saying that he had heard about Shen Kang for a long time, but he did not manage to cross paths with him because he was teaching other classes. The teacher said that most of all he despises people who look down on everyone because of their condition. He also added that he was very sorry that he could not teach the young man personally. Lin decided to let Shen Kaian know everything he was worth today, called him trash that tainted the history of Yanbei High School. The teacher mentioned that the guy was played by his own family, on which he depended. One of the students believed that the teacher would beat the young man to death. Others say that Shen Qian planned to give another bribe and calmly pass on. Shen Qian decided to make a bet on money with a cheeky teacher, since he looks at rich children from high. The guy suggested to Lin that if he passed the exam, he would have to pay him 10,000 yuan. And if he loses, he will give the teacher 100,000. Then, Lin will definitely not be in harm's way. Their conversation was interrupted by the director, who reminded the men that they were on an important exam and not at the bazaar. The head strictly forbade Teacher Lin Jai to participate in such a thing. Teacher Lin said that he would pay the young man the same amount as he promised to give if he won. He also reminded the director that the student can also refuse his bet, and the teacher can't help himself. Because the guy is a student and he is a teacher, Lin Jai cannot refuse under the gaze of the students, as his own dignity is under threat. The head of the school had no choice but to agree. And also, he had to remind the teacher to strictly control his powers no higher than the first level. And if the student's life is in danger, he will be forced to intervene. To which Lin Jai responded positively and promised not to kill Shen Qian. The director decided to warn the young man that even if Lin restrains himself, his experience and skills far exceed his imagination. The manager only hoped that the guy would be able to cope on his own and wished him success. Shen Qian promised to take responsibility for his actions. The students started talking about how they had never seen Teacher Lin so angry before. They were really scared, knowing what he was capable of. After all, if they don't kill him, they will definitely cripple him. But girl Liang Ming was once again struck by the unusual performance of the guy and was greatly intrigued. After all, only he is capable of making such a mess. None of the observers hoped for Shen Qian's victory. It was simply impossible, considering who his opponent was. In the ring, the former heir of the Shen family and an experienced teacher Lin Jai. The referee standing between them abruptly lowered his hand, announcing the start of the fight. Lin Jai is a teacher with an E2 certificate from Yanbei High School, Level 6. His opponent, Shen Qian, is a high school student of Yanbei, who is rumored to have only recently started practicing martial arts. The judge officially introduced the rivals to each other. From Teacher Lin came the aura of a man who is determined to win. His strength and tenacity could be felt from a kilometer away. His opponent looked tense and anxious, seeing such a serious opponent in front of him. The students looking at it knew for sure that an experienced and wise teacher would win. No one could think of a different outcome of events. The first technique Teacher Lin decided to use was 1,000 Buddha flowers. It was quite a powerful technique, especially for the first time. Its meaning is to create the illusion of 1,000 hands from which it is impossible to defend. One of the exam supervisors mentioned that earlier, Lin Jai used this attack as a third technique. Many hands appeared around the teacher, which were in different poses, ready to strike from all sides at the same time. He didn't want to delay and worked quickly. Shen Qian repelled the attack with only one hand, saying that it was useless. The audience was amazed to see how easily the guy blocked all the movements of the teacher. They thought that the young man could now clearly see his opponent's maneuvers. The teacher noticed Shen Qian's good attentiveness, because he himself was quite surprised. Teasing Lin Jai, the guy asked him to use a more powerful technique, because this is not all that he is capable of. The young man expected a stronger attack in order to quickly finish with the surrender. The teacher only said that the guy should be less arrogant and observe the rules of decency. Shen Qian revealed that since Teacher Lin despises the rich, he would treat him the same way. The students understood that the young man only wanted to anger the teacher, but the examiner's rage would not bring him any benefit, but would complicate it. Now, everyone was really worried about Shen Qian's life. Starting to gather his will into a fist, Lin Jai said that he uses the following technique: the fist of the white monkey. His eyes were blazing with indignation, and the atmosphere in the air was heating up. The director said that if the 1,000 buds of Buddha is designed for attentiveness, then the fist of the white monkey is for strength. Even the slightest deviation will never be able to block the blow. His assistant got scared and said that the complexity of the attack was too high and exceeded the assessment requirement, to which the head replied that it was high time to teach the arrogant Shen Qian a lesson, since he knows no boundaries. The teacher quickly jumped up in the air, pushing off with one foot, and furiously went on the attack. Shen Qian began to think that even if he trained in hand-to-hand combat, the level would remain the same. And without combat experience, it will be very difficult to reach an advanced rank. A prerequisite for advancement in this field is practice, not the study of technology, so a small number of people are thinking about the hand-to-hand style of combat. The main character considered himself an exception to the rule. After all, the improvement of the system is mandatory, regardless of how he practices or studies the technique. Therefore, the guy can really win. Hope and faith in success settled in him. When the opponent's fist was approaching, Shen Qian said that he was using the 8th technique of the martial art, a technique called fist rotation. Grabbing the teacher's hand, the guy caused some changes in his movements. The young man took the chance and jumped away from the failed technique to the side. The teacher missed and hit the floor with his fist. The students were shocked again by Shen Qian's successful tactics. Even the observing examiners were amazed. The assistant director said that the guy used his fighting technique to neutralize the attack power of the white monkey. In turn, the head of the school thought that the young man had reached an incredible level, and his hand-to-hand combat was not only advanced, but also the most difficult type of combat. Astonished, Lin Jai noticed that the guy had an advanced level, along with combat skills. Shen Qian said that they were wrong to think that he was a weakling who was not capable of learning martial arts. But in his mind he had that he almost lost, despite the fact that the teacher restrains his strength. The guy was tired and covered in abrasions. The young man told everyone that he knew about the bad gossip behind his back. Namely, about the fact that he is just a spoiled rich son who knows nothing about martial arts. He also added that he was here not just to win a bet, but to prove his strength and honesty. Shen Qian sincerely wanted to protect his family's honor. The guy again asked his opponent to use his strongest technique. From such bold and correct words, the observing students began to gradually change their opinion about Shen Qian. They thought that they had really misunderstood him all this time. Some of the girls even began to like the young man. Shen Qian reminded the teacher that if he received another blow, he would lose 100,000 to him. The teacher understood everything and apologized to the young man for not taking him seriously before. To show his respect, he decided to use the strongest punch he could afford at the first level. The director began to be extremely indignant, telling Lin Ju that he had lost his mind, because at the qualifying competitions you can't use the support of the great mantra from an advanced martial art. His assistant interrupted his leader, reminding him that they pay the teacher's salary to her wife, so he wants to win so much to get 100,000 yuan. And that was a good reason. The head of the school explained that the strength of the support of the white mantra is extremely great, but it has a significant drawback. It accumulates energy for a long time and it can be easily avoided by those who have rich experience. Shen Qian has an advanced level in hand-to-hand martial art, so he has it. But the assistant explained that since the guy is constantly dodging to save his money, the most appropriate way for teacher Lin to win is to use this technique. The teacher had already prepared to strike a decisive blow, saying at the same time that it was only for the sake of money. He didn't want the young man to hold a grudge against him. Shen Qian visibly tensed up, starting to peer into every action of the examiner. Meanwhile, the teacher completed his technique with a powerful kick. The judges and the audience did not understand what was going on and who finally won. Some even got up from their seats to personally observe everything. Unexpectedly for everyone, there was a clap of hands. It was Shen Qian who was praising his opponent for a terrific punch. The guy said that the attack scared him to death, saved only by the fact that he reacted quickly. The students couldn't believe their eyes. It seemed that they were all petrified. Teacher Lin was also amazed by the young man's winnings. Shen Qian was already about to leave, explaining that he had already withstood 3 blows. The examiner was furious. He told the guy to shut up and recalled his words that he was not going to shy away from the techniques, whatever they were, and also remembered the stories of the young man about the honor and dignity of the family. Shen Qian replied that it was just a joke. He didn't understand why everyone believed his words so easily. Moreover, he was kicked out of the Sheng family, but in fact he thinks that all the guys from there are not really men, judging by their actions and behavior. The girl Liang Ming at first thought that the young man had changed, but it turned out that he had only fooled everyone. Enraged, Lin Ju offered the guy to take another blow of the support of the great mantra, if he had any conscience left. Shen Qian easily agreed, but at the same time set one condition. It consisted in the fact that the amount of the bet increases. The teacher will owe 100,000 if he loses. The director stopped the men from the next bet in time. He agreed with the guy's victory. After all, 3 strikes are sustained, and according to the rules, Shen Qian passes the test. The old leader had no other choice but to accept and accept. Teacher Lin was against it and wanted to continue the duel, but the director said that he understood him, but as a teacher, he should set an example to others by following the rules. Lin Ju understood everything. The owner of the school added that the 2 rivals made a bet during the qualifying exams, thereby violating the rules of the Yanbei school. The director issued such a verdict that Teacher Lin was suspended from his activities for a week, and Shen Qian was fined 50,000 yuan, which will be directly deducted from the amount of the result of the bet from Lin Jai. The guy resisted this decision because he earns money with his skills, and today everything went exactly according to plan. He considered it unfair to take away his earnings. The headmaster quickly reassured Shen Qian by saying that Lin Jai would be an elite class teacher in the future, and since the young man will study there, it is better for him to cool his ardor and calm down. The guy said that he suddenly realized the importance of the absence of monetary disagreements between students and teachers. The head only noticed the calculating train of thought of the main character. A little puzzled examiner approached Shen Qian and asked for his bank account number, because he was ready to participate in the bet and now does not refuse to transfer money. With a friendly attitude, the guy handed the required sheet, thanking the teacher in advance. Taking it, Lin Ju said that he would not remain in debt to the young man, and with the beginning of the school year, he would definitely take care of him. Shen Qian was a little wary, because he hadn't even started studying yet, and he had already quarreled with the teacher. The guy was scared to think about what might happen in the future. The next day, in an elite class, kind classmates met a young man with a bucket of water, which never reached him. Shen Qian only told them what a naive act it was. The students called the guy a pathetic coward. They reminded him that he should be ashamed of his antics at the qualifiers. They didn't understand how such a person could enter an elite class. The hero came into the classroom to ridicule in words that everyone was just sorry for him. The students believed that Shen Kaian was guilty of suspending teacher Lin from lessons for the next week. A chair was broken at the desk that the guy wanted to occupy. He couldn't even guess if it was done on purpose. But Lang Ming invited the young man to sit next to her. After all, there was an empty seat next to her. The others began to tell the girl that she was still compassionate to newcomers, and the hero decided to apologize to her. A teacher entered the classroom and announced that he would be replacing teacher Lin. Shen Kaian decided to ask the lady if she was afraid to communicate with him. Yang Ming replied that she didn't care, because she was here like an outcast. After discussing their elite class, the guy and the girl shook hands as a sign of greeting and perhaps the beginning of friendship. It was raining heavily outside when Shen Kaian returned to his mansion after school. He began to recall the events of a hard day's work. Namely, getting to know a new teacher who told the guy that he missed a lot of classes and now all the preparations for theoretical exams need to be done again. This information was given to the young man hard, because he thought that practical skills were enough for successful studies. The mentor replied that such skills, of course, are useful, but he planned to hone them so that the guy could use unlimited power in the future. Shen Kaian promised to study hard and memorize all new material. The new teacher impressed him as a demanding person who knows his job well. He didn't seem biased towards Shen Kang, but only wanted the guy to keep up with the other students. Anyway, the young man thought that homework was too much for him. He thought it would be great if someone helped him write it. It was night outside. Unexpectedly, Wu Jin broke into Shen Kang, who, with fear on her face, asked the guy for help. She hurriedly went into the house, saying that she would explain everything later, because someone was following her now. They started knocking loudly on the front door, and the girl begged the young man not to let himself be caught and hidden in the house. Wu Jin hid in the mansion, and the hero had to open the door to uninvited guests. Several grown men were standing on the threshold. They looked intimidating and hostile. The men said they were looking for a student. They saw her running to his house. Shen Kaian told them that he did not understand who they were talking about, asked them from which family, because it was simply inappropriate to ask about a girl at such a late hour. The young man asked the guys to leave his place. One of the men began to whisper to their boss that the mansion looks expensive, and the guy is rich, so they should not give trouble to the owner. The leader of the intruders folded his hands and told Shen Kang that they were Brother Lie's people, and that student owed them money. The formidable man hoped for the understanding of the young man. The guy replied that he definitely would not help the poor, who are not even able to pay their debt. The hero felt that he had become well accustomed to the image of a rich man. The gang leader admitted that Shen Kaian was right. He apologized for disturbing the gentleman at such a late hour and said goodbye. But the other members of the group were clearly dissatisfied with this behavior of the man because they clearly saw the girl near this house. He reassured them, saying that everything was fine because they could go back and check this guy on their sources and then decide what to do next. After closing the door, Wu Jin immediately started asking Shen Kaian if the uninvited guests had left. He told her to stop talking nonsense and tell her what was going on. The girl told that her father was addicted to alcohol as well as to gambling. When he's not drinking at home, it means he's playing for money, Wu Jin explained. She went on to say that every time he needs to pay off his debts, he runs away. And this time, without knowing it, he contacted influential people, and when they broke into their house to grab their father, they stumbled upon her. The men just knocked the door off their feet, thereby greatly scaring the girl. They said that since dad ran away, then let his daughter pay because the money has been waiting for a long time. Therefore, Wu Jin had to run away from home, and the only place where she could hide was Shen Kaian's mansion. She said she was very sorry for the inconvenience and would leave a little later. Wu Jin warned the guy that if they come again in the future again, they need to be told that she is only a thief and the young man is not familiar with her. Then, he definitely won't have any problems. She said that she had found a way to pay off her father's debt, no matter what. Shen Kaian stopped the girl and said that she had nothing to do with the money owed by her unscrupulous parent. He asked what she was going to do next, because in such a situation it was difficult to make a reasonable decision. His house is big and there are a lot of free rooms in it, so the guy suggested that she stay here for a while. The young man said that he would have to pay something for this help, because free cheese is only in a mousetrap. Wu Jin was embarrassed and thought that the guy needed to use her body, but he said the price would be much scarier. Shen Kaian dumped a stack of his textbooks in front of the girl and informed her that from now on, she would help him with his homework. In the house of the Sheng family, in the early morning, Hao Chan is actively engaged in sports. A servant approached him and reported that Shen Kaian had been accepted into the elite class of Yanbei High School. The young master thought that his brother took these 500,000 yuan to spend on entertainment, but did not expect that he would do the same trick again with bribing an examiner to enter an elite class. Hao Chan said that Shen Kaian had not learned anything, because even if the ant did not stop resisting, it would be crushed by a human. The next day, at Yanbei High School, the students smoking behind the building were actively discussing Shen Kaian. One of them said that everyone knows about his conflict with Master Hao Tian from the Sheng family. Another suggested that the young master had wanted to do something with him for a long time, but because of the situation, he could not do anything. The leader of this group offered to take the initiative to help Hao Chan because it will definitely play into their hands in the future. The brown-haired disciple said that after all, Shen Qian is also from the Sheng family, and this should not be done. But the one on the side of the heir interrupted him, saying that the guy was not worthy to bear his surname at all. After all, he's just a worthless trash who hasn't been able to advance in martial arts even in 7 years. Other students supported their boss and promised to follow him. They had already started coming up with a plan on how to frame Shen Qian. For example, to force him to drop out of school, then they can go to Hao Tian and ask for a reward. Behind them was the hero himself, who did not expect such suspicious activity from his classmates. All the conspirators were greatly surprised to suddenly see in front of them the one they were discussing. Shen Qian told them that since they decided to deal with him, they should find a more secluded place because in broad daylight, and even at school, is not the best choice. The guys informed him that this is one of the few places in the school where there is no video surveillance. Therefore, even if they beat him half to death here, the school won't be able to do anything because of the lack of evidence. The young man was surprised by what was said, and the students thought that he was scared and said that it was his own fault because no one told him to come here. But Shen Qian meant that since there are no cameras here, he cannot hold back and show everything he is capable of. The hero notably beat and taught a lesson. He was disappointed because he thought he could train well, but who knew that guys were such weaklings? All three are at an advanced level of martial art, but the young man didn't even break a sweat while fighting with them. He became very bored from such a duel, crawling into the bushes. The students begged to stop beating them, adding that they did not want to harm Shen Qian. The hero stood in front of them with his head held high, asking if his abusers admired him. And they, like faithful dogs, convinced him that they were really amazed to the core by the guy's skills. Classmates asked to let them go, promising that the next time they see him, they will be bypassed. Shen Qian will answer that since they are in the same class, it will not be good to avoid him all the time. And he offered the guys another solution. The young man took money from his classmates. But there were not many of them, all three of them had only 5,000 yuan. But they added another blood kai pill to him, quite a valuable medicine. Shen Qian said that this is certainly not enough, but it will do for now. The next time they meet, they may consider that they are great friends. One of the trio noticed that the young man had suddenly become so strong, to which the boss replied that he had another way to get Shen Qian to leave the school. The guy's plan was to complain to the director about the hero for beatings. They made a rather pathetic appearance and entered the office. The gang immediately started accusing Shen Qian of being a scoundrel and a brawler, but they did not notice that the young man himself was already there. He showed the director a recording of their threats and the words of the conspiracy to eliminate the guy. The head of the school forced the Trinity to explain, to which they had to apologize and repent of what they had done. The director strictly ordered the disobedient students to stay in the office and explain why they pretended to be beaten and wanted to frame Shen Qian. Now they have fulfilled all the whims of the young man. Classmates said they would admit their guilt and asked the guy to let them go already, especially since they had paid him compensation. But Shen Qian told them not to hurry, because the director said that if the guys want to avoid punishment, then they need to get his forgiveness. He was interrupted by an unknown student who wanted to apologize to the hero on behalf of all classmates. As it turned out, his name is Zhang Kou. He is number 1 in the class. Shen Qian had not seen him before because the school had specifically created such a rule so that the top 3 students in the class could not attend classes daily. Zhang Kou explained that the 3 bullies are also classmates. They sincerely admit their mistakes, so Shen Qian should stop bullying them. The first student in the class looked very mysterious and a little intimidating. The hero definitely wouldn't want to go against him. He didn't know him, but most of all he didn't want to mess with him. After all, he might even be one of the bad guys. At lunch, all the students trained at the training base. After all practitioners must study hard to prepare for the monthly exam this weekend. The teacher said that if someone gets into the top 3 of the class, then he will be able to receive a priceless recovery pill as a reward. This motivated all the students to study harder and improve their skills. Shen Qian thought that the recovery pill was much cooler than the blood kai pill he was given. The guy needed something that could instantly replenish a large amount of kai. The hero began to think that he should try to get into the top 3, but relying only on hand-to-hand combat is useless. Suddenly, the young man's thoughts were interrupted by another student. He turned out to be an old acquaintance of Shen Qian and was very surprised to meet him. The student said that he had heard about the incident with his 3 friends, who had some misunderstandings with Brother Shen. Shen Qian asked an acquaintance what he needed at all. Along the way, remembering how Zhu Jiatan used to constantly hang around him and did not have his own opinion, because he always agreed with the master. And after Shen Tan took the place of the heir, Zhu Jia immediately joined him. I began to fulfill all his small errands and requests. A former friend had heard that Shen Qian's hand-to-hand combat level had increased significantly. He also asked for help to sort out some issues related to training. Noticing a free arena, Zhu Jia suggested arranging a duel there to test his strength. The young man replied that his friend might not even be interested in his level, so he decided to ask another classmate to help Jujia. Mentally, Shen Kai couldn't believe that his old friend was practicing for the first time, but he understood hand-to-hand techniques. The hero called Zhang Kou, brought Jujia to him and said that he had some questions about his technique. The young man assured the elder that his friend wanted to ask for advice. Zhang Kou cordially agreed to the request and told a classmate that if he did not understand, he could always ask for help, because they should always help each other. Jujia-chan was upset that Shen Kai got rid of him. The hero approached the teacher's office and began that while he was studying at this school, his old friend would use cases to create problems for the young man. Therefore, he needs to take a vacation for these days to earn extra strength and pass the monthly exam. Shen Kai made a pained face in front of the teacher, as if he was very ill, and said that he needed to take 2 days off. During these days, he promised to have a good rest and prepare for the surrender. The teacher gave his permission, believing that he saw how the guy took his homework seriously, and in many parts his ideas were not very bad. The strict teacher hoped that the student had really changed for the better. He gave him a vacation, but on the condition that Shen Kai would do even more homework, and if he could not cope, then let him not wonder where the young man got such a low score. The stack of tasks was huge and seemed unaffordable. Shen Kai caught on to the teacher's words about well-done homework, because Wu Jin did it. So, the girl did everything without mistakes. She faithfully fulfilled the terms of the deal. When the guy returned home after school, Wu Jin was sleeping right on the table, surrounded by textbooks and notebooks with assignments. He was surprised that she hadn't woken up yet. Shen Kai covered the girl with a blanket, saying softly that she was lucky to have such a kind host, otherwise he would have woken her up to make him tea. It was the middle of the night when Wu Jin finally woke up. She noticed that the guy had already returned, but could not figure out where he was. Going outside, the girl saw Shen Kai practicing the bloody hawk strike technique. She was surprised that he was training at such a late hour. There was a textbook with a description of the technique in front of the young man, and he himself was diligently engaged in training. Wu Jin noticed that the guy's movements looked quite strange. Shen Kai himself thought that his handwork was different from that bandit. Even though he had just started, he already felt a strong difference. The girl directly gave the guy that his movements were terrible, but then immediately apologized, because she said without thinking. Wu Jin didn't want to laugh at him at all. The young man was only surprised that the young lady had already woken up and said that he was not angry. Shen Kai asked to name exactly why they are terrible. Wu Jin said that this is just her guess, but the guy's technique seems a little clumsy. She advised the young man to raise his elbows 3 centimeters higher and lower his knees by 2 because it's more convenient right away. Shen Kai took this pose. The girl only corrected him, telling him to sit a little lower. Wu Jin was sure that the guy was much more comfortable this way, but he replied that he was already at the limit. She encouraged the young man in every possible way, asked him not to give up and hold out a little longer. Already in the morning, Wu Jin woke up and found the guy still training. He was already very tired and exhausted, but he continued to improve his skills and techniques. The girl did not expect that the guy would be so diligent. She had to help him with homework and with training. She was also pretty exhausted. Shen Kai gave her a salary, asking if she still had the strength. She instantly transformed, became more cheerful and was ready for a new job. The guy began to notice that Wu Jin has a special talent in martial arts, because she can at first glance identify mistakes in the movements of other practitioners based on what is written in the book. If the technique is not harmonious, then the expression of dissatisfaction can be seen in her eyes, and other people cannot notice their own shortcomings. Shen Kai took a pose resembling a heron. He kept on one leg, bending the other at the knee, and folded his hands in a certain way. The girl happily said that this rack looks nice and cool, and also, the guy should be much more comfortable. Seeing how the lady was trying to repeat his movements, the young man thought that it was a pity that she could only observe and coordinate, because her body was far from balance. Shen Kai was sorry that such a talent was missing. A week later, the hero reached the first level in the bloody hawk strike technique. A bloody hawk strike, ka, or any other technique is still better than hand-to-hand combat. It has 2 stages that need to be practiced. Finally, the guy will be able to complete the purification of inner Kai. Unlike this skill, hand-to-hand combat is just pathetic. Having calculated the sum of the strength of the martial art, which is composed of 2 types of martial arts, the young man will be able to harden the body 3 times and finally become a master of martial arts of the 3rd level. The main prerequisite for entering the bloodline brain state is to reach the 9th level. An ordinary martial artist would immediately begin to comprehend the bloodline brain state. Improvement requires a lot of time and money. A person with a limited supply of all this will not be able to achieve anything. The same applies to practice. The number of body hardening possibilities is limited, so most masters prefer to comprehend a new state when they reach a suitable level. An extremely small number of geniuses with resources and talents continue to remain at a low level, but there is an exception. The strongest practitioner in history who had the 15th level of physical fitness. The result was not long in coming and his power began to suppress his own life, and in the end he died. But the main character is not like that. because as long as he has a lot of advice, he can train as much as he wants. At least, that's what the young man thought. However, you can't get everything at once. Shen Kaien's current money was not even enough to reach the full level of hand-to-hand combat. A bloody hawk strike should be much better than hand-to-hand combat even at the first level. First, the guy needs to raise the level of this technique to at least average in order to find out if the blood purification pill will withstand such an amount of invited energy. Shen Kaien asked the system to raise the rank of the blood hawk strike to the average level. The hero took a blood purification pill, so he did not feel exhausted at all. He thought that the average level was not enough to waste the entire effect of the medicine. He had money left, so he decided to increase the level even more. Shen Kaien continued to contribute funds for promotion to advanced rank. Finally, the effect of the pill ended and the hero began to feel a little tired in his body. He thought that the pill was not yet able to fully compensate for such an amount of energy consumed. Such a pill is able to organize a full return only when moving from the initial to the advanced level. Shen Kaien said that if he wanted to become stronger, in addition to money, he would need stronger medicines so that he wouldn't have to worry about energy anymore. Now the guy needs to get more pills to restore his strength. Wu Jin ran to the young man, calling him for breakfast. She cooked noodles and added some fried eggs. Shen Kaien promised to come and taste the girl's food soon, asked not to forget to cut him more green onions. The only thought in his mind was to pass the monthly exam. In Yanbei High School, there is a rule according to which a monthly exam is conducted in each class. The essence of the exam is simple. It's an ordinary fight in the arena. Initially, each student receives a rating card and the winner exchanges the rating with the loser. Therefore, students with a low rating deliberately choose the strong ones with a higher one. This is how the rating is formed. The exam host informed everyone that Zhang Kaoyu and Liang Ming are absent from today's exam, so the rating of all those present rises by 2. The students started saying that Zhu Jiatan was now in the first place. They just wanted to gain combat experience with a strong opponent. Zhu Jia thought that they were just a bunch of fools with no strength. He genuinely did not understand their desire to ask someone to tighten up their abilities. Shen Kaien was told that according to the rules, his rating would be the lowest since he had just entered this class. Everyone hoped that he would behave honestly and not become the same as before. The guy promised that he would try his best, and the gossips around began to think who he bribed again to win. One of them said that they should remember not to accept the young man's money. The person standing next to him noticed that Shen Kaien should not be underestimated, because he heard how he defeated Gao Bo and 2 others a couple of days ago, and his hand-to-hand combat skills are at a perfect level. 15 minutes later, a guy named Wu Dai Lu won, and the rating remained the same. Zhu Jiatan was perplexed that no one had challenged him yet, because while Zhang Kaoyun is not there, everyone should try to take first place in the ranking. The students began to talk among themselves that while Zhang Kao is on the podium, everyone can try to take this place because he fights with dignity and knows how to stop during. And Zhu Jia is too cruel and ruthless towards his rivals. A smug young man standing in the first place said that all the people standing outside the arena are just garbage that does not deserve his attention. But he added that he was not trying to offend anyone. In response to this, Shen Kaien said that even more trash is the one who judges him without even seeing him in the ring during the battle. The hero with the 40th rank challenged the guy with the first. All the students were surprised by such courage. After all, Zhu Tan has a perfect level of martial art. Shen Kaien will not be easy, having only an average. The main character was cheerful and full of energy. He was serious about gaining the upper hand. The young man said that today everyone will find out who the real master of hand-to-hand combat is. The opponents moved from their seats. Shen Kaien shouted about his mountain-shattering strike. Zhu Jia said that he was acting too slowly. But suddenly the opponent flew at him from behind, attacking with a bloody hawk strike. It was a mind-blowing technique that helped defeat the proud Zhu Qian in one blow. He just sat down pathetically on the floor, spitting out his own blood. The loser could not recover for a long time and realized the situation. The judge announced that Shen Kaien had been promoted to first place. The students couldn't believe how the hero was able to defeat Zhu Jiatan with one blow. They recognized the blood hawk technique, but did not understand how the young man had upgraded it to such a rank, because the attack power was destructive. The students said that Shen Kaien had mastered not only the basic technique of hand-to-hand combat, but also other martial arts. They were shocked that he had not even reached the first level of body hardening, but was already practicing 2 martial skills. The students began to think that with such skills, only Zhang Kaoyu, who was temporarily absent, could defeat him. No one could believe that the former bad student was able to take first place in the class. Unexpectedly, Shen Kaien succumbed to his classmate Wei Pan, making him the first in the ranking. The people couldn't believe that Wei Pan would be able to defeat the guy on his own, because he had the lowest rank and he managed to barely reach only the initial level. Other students could not accept such an outcome. Everyone wanted to be on a pedestal. Therefore, one of them easily won against the weak Wei Pan, but he was immediately stopped by Shen Kaien, who took away the first place card and again gave it to the previous owner. So, the guy developed a tactic, thanks to which he wanted to earn more money. Wai Pan simply pays Shen Qian for a place at the top of the ranking, and the young man did not dare to refuse. And Zhu Tian was struggling hard from the last place to his rightful first. He was just challenging everyone, still devaluing the strength of the other students. Shen Qian intervened in this, offering the guys his service to raise the rank. Thus, the young man, whenever Zhu Tian challenges someone and wins, offers them his help in regaining their level. An hour later, on the posted rating, it was written that Zhu Jiatian was in 40th place and Shen Qian was in 39th place.